Day one of 2026 Cardinals winter warm-up is officially wrapped up. It is weird. We're in person together. Wow, this is crazy. Hey, we're going to react to Chaim, Oli, Ivan Herrera, different players, and things we heard from the media sessions today in winter warm-up. I think there's a lot of really interesting tidbits, and we'll react to some of your guys' comments as we go through on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Welcome into Dealing the Cards, Josh and Andrew together in person today. No Sandy. Hey, it's like the charity live stream from not that long ago that we did. Hey, we're St. Louis Cardinals podcast, goes live twice a week over here on our YouTube channel. If you look at our feed today, we've got a variety of videos posted by Andrew, which is all of his great work as usual. Different interviews from today. Let us know how audio is as we're going through too. If you're joining the live chat, I know some of you are joining us with right now. And we're just going to do a quick reaction today about what we heard and saw from Cardinals winter warm-up today. I do think at the top, I wanted to address two things. One is kind of funny because I want Andrew to address what he's wearing right now. Oh, yeah. And then two, I want to talk a little bit about something that Oli, Chaim, different players and media, and I mean, just people kind of observed as went through kind of what the vibe was like at winter warm-up, not even just from who we were interviewing and talking to today, but I think a lot of people are interested to see, would Cardinal fans even show up to winter warm-up, and if they did, kind of what's the vibe? And I think there's mixed things that happen that I want to address, but I think overall it might surprise some people about what the turnout was like and what the response was like. But Andrew, you didn't walk in today with that jersey on, so
I did not. So I'm wearing a game-used Eric Fetty jersey. I don't know if you can see it. That's number 12 right here. And then on the back, there's not very much space here, but it is an Eric Fetty jersey that I got at the Authentic shop for like $75. It's not crazy. Too bad because it's got all the stitching. It's like all the authentic stitching that's not like you don't usually find on the replica ones. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, cheaper than you could buy a normal jersey right now, which is kind of crazy. But so Andrew walked away with some memorabilia. There you go. But I do think one of the things, and even as we were walking around, we stayed mostly in the interview area because we wanted to be around for that throughout the day. But we did peel away at the end to kind of see kind of what fan engagement was like, and it was fun to run into someone that watches the channel and listens, and appreciate that, and kind of the fun dynamics with that. But different people asked Oli, Chaim, just kind of and even just their own perception of what they felt like the vibe was like going into the day. In the past, winter warm-up used to be one of those like can't miss events for Cardinal fans where it's just packed. You have to pay to go, which you don't have to pay to go anymore. There's so much going on, and people were kind of wondering in a year like this, would fans turn out? And Oli had a pretty interesting comment about how when he woke up and looked outside his hotel room early in the morning, there was lines of fans kind of lined up outside the area. I drove in from out of town today and kind of came in about an hour before interview started. And when I pulled into the parking lot, it was pretty much full already. There were people walking around. Like, it seemed like there was a lot of people engaged today. So I guess, Andrew, I want to address, there was a funny question asked to Chaim that like gets on the other side of it, but were you surprised by the turnout there was today, fan engagement wise?
I would say, like, Oli made the comment that, there were a lot of fans like just lined up outside the stadium. And I think like it's not abnormal, right? Because there's still a lot of Cardinal fans in the area. There's alumni coming back. I think David Freese was there. There's some pretty big names in Cardinal land that were like signing autographs today. And the event's also free now. So like I believe the first time I went, it was like $20 and they didn't invite me. So I had to pay for my entry. So that definitely helps with the event, like not being paid anymore and things like that. But we were walking around, I think, mainly towards the end of the day, so there wasn't too much going on, I would say. Like for the most part, I've definitely seen it more packed, but I can't really speak for like the height of the day when like Chaim was talking and BPV and all of those things were going on. I don't really know if that, like during those hours, how busy it was. I'm sure other people who were there for the main event were actually seeing a lot more. Like we'll have to see if anyone in the comments was at this event. Like let us know and how good the fan engagement was. I know that the showcase, like the small businesses that were there are definitely fewer of them this time than there were in years past. Like the showcase hall and whatever felt a little bit more empty than it did in years past. Not as many places to get stuff, and a lot of the memorabilia was definitely cheaper, right? Like I got this Eric Fetty jersey. I think last year it would have cost me like $400, and I didn't even pay like a quarter of that for this. I also got a nice sign of Eric Fetty that I'm going to hang up at some point.
Oh man!
So you'll see that. This will be on the wall. Maybe it'll replace the Ohtani jersey because people get mad that I have an Ohtani jersey in the backdrop. Maybe you can look at an Eric Fetty jersey. This is still really weird because I don't talk when we do these in-person charity streams. So
that's great. I know most of you probably didn't tune in to listen to what the fan engagement was like, but I did think it was interesting to know and kind of the tailwind into Chaim Bloom stuff. He was asked before he came into the media room. He had a fan interaction Q&A in Ballpark Village, and I think Brandon Kiley threw it up over on Twitter X from 101 ESPN, and basically the first question Chaim was asked was like, why are you trading away all the good players, and are we just a farm team for the Los Angeles Dodgers and the rest of MLB now? So, and his reaction was kind of funny to kind of watch him listen to it. The question was a long question. He just kind of kept going and going and going. So anyways, it was interesting to see. I think it tailed into the kind of the conversation we had with Chaim and kind of addressing like does he see this vision going, and what's the vision he's trying to sell Cardinal fans on, and does he believe that Cardinal fans are going to buy into that? Are people going to show up, and what are expectations for the 2026 season? How do you measure whether or not they're on track or not? One of the things I asked Chaim was like asked him to compare his situation in Boston and kind of things he learned from that experience, and then if he believed he was going to get the kind of runway he feels like he might need in St. Louis to truly achieve this vision. I used runway tongue in cheek, but like we talk about runway for the St. Louis Cardinals players and prospects a lot, but like in a real way, Chaim is asking for runway with this vision, and he's asking people to trust and have patience. And Chaim's talked about this idea of patience versus urgency, and that like maybe the way that we've heard about or talked about patience in the past has been really frustrating for fans because people like see like, hey, this team needs to have more urgency than it has right now. But I think there's a way to have a long-term vision, but be urgent and diligent in the everydays. And I think we've seen that this offseason with the amount of moves he's made. But Chaim talked a lot about alignment and clarity within his, and look from his time from Boston, something he's trying to bring over into St. Louis, and just being very clear about where they're going, where they need to be aligned as an organization, and then being honest with people in the organization whenever they're not going the same direction. And to address Samuel's comment in here, like he's only had 3 months. True, but I'm talking about like this vision he's laying out. He keeps talking about this is a long-term play. This is not going to be done by the end of 2026. The hope is at the end of 2026, they're moving in a positive direction and moving more toward contention. But this isn't a one-year project. This is a multi-year rebuild ahead of him. And he's had 2 years of the organization running into it. And so I was just curious, like, does he believe that? Because they go to Boston and very quickly that fan base turned on him. Ownership kind of turned the gauges on him, and he was out in a few years. And then Boston succeeds after he leaves. And so I was curious from Chaim's perspective, does he believe he's going to have enough time to execute this vision and keep fans interested, keep ownership's investment into things, and to be able to run this team back into where we know it can be and where it's been in the past? There's I think there's a concern from fans about, are the Cardinals just about to copy and paste the Tampa Bay Rays model? And that's not the vibe I get from Chaim in our conversations. I truly believe there is a restart, a rebuild happening here, but I think it's with the intention of how do you get back to a sustainable baseball like they played from 2000 to 2022, I guess you could say, rather than having to truly bottom out and be now the Pirates or even a competitive Rays. But how do you get back to competing in the mid-market side of things? So and then he talked about this, I think he does believe that they have that kind of runway, and part of it's casting a vision that people buy into and believe in. And so just Andrew, overall, I've got another thing from Chaim I want to address, and if there's questions in here, maybe you've watched the interviews already, let us know. But how did you feel walking away from our time with Chaim today?
Yeah, I mean, it felt refreshing, right? I feel like I mean, I haven't been around the Cardinals organization long enough, especially in this space, to like really have gotten tired of Mo in that kind of sense. But it did feel like there's just like a new voice, and a new like turning of the corner where it seems like a lot of these players are a lot more excited to play under Chaim. Ivan Herrera had a funny comment where it was like, yeah, now it feels like the front office finally cares about me, where it's like, well, wasn't Mo supposed to do that? You know, like I feel like Mo was maybe hindering his development in certain ways. And we asked Ivan that, and he addressed that as well, where, you know, I definitely think there were a lot of issues with that. And Chaim, I think everyone's being pretty diplomatic and polite about it, with how the Mo regime ended, but it definitely doesn't sit well with me that like so many of these players seem to be like, yeah, the organization finally is like noticing me or caring about me in this sense, where like why were they not doing that before, right? Like that's kind of crazy to me, but you know, definitely refreshing to see that. And he used some of the Moisms, you know, like patience, like he addressed that, and I think he said low hanging fruit at some point today too, which I thought was pretty funny. But
even then, I feel like when you listen to Chaim, and I highly encourage people to go check out that interview on our channel, he's just far more engaging and compelling. And I sit there and I'm like, yeah, like I feel like if I'm in those meeting rooms, I'm fired up about the vision. And is it going to work? We'll see. But I don't think we always got that from Mo. I think sometimes it felt very sarcastic. It felt alienating. It felt like you're being talked down to at times. And I'm not even trying to like bash at Mo here. Sometimes I just don't feel like he came across the best. And Chaim, I feel like, is very winsome in his language, and it's easy to follow. And one of the things I think at the end that was super compelling, and I really encourage people to go check it out, is the very last question Chaim was asked was regarding, hey, like you've seen the reports about the Dodgers signing Tucker and getting Edwin Diaz and all these things. Like, how are you going to compete with the Los Angeles Dodgers in the future? And Chaim basically put his foot down to say, like, if you focus on the problem at hand and if you focus on the obstacles, that's not a good way to win. Like, he wants their organization to figure out, how do we win the World Series? How do we be that competitive club and not focus on what other people are doing? And that means in St. Louis, they're going to have to do it a little bit differently. I'm not talking about doing it Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll see if they end up going in that direction. I don't think they're going to go fully Tampa Bay Rays. But we also know they can't run a $470 million payroll. They're not going to, like, pushing over 200 is going to be a stretch probably. And so how do you sustain and build a contender in St. Louis? And Chaim is excited about that challenge. I think he's motivated by the obstacles at hand. He's talked about, like, it's not worth really speculating on what the new CBA will bring because it's probably wasted energy, because you could think it's going to go in one direction and it doesn't, and you've wasted time. So they'll react to the state of the league. If there's a salary cap or if there's changes in terms of spending that maybe helps them out. But even if there isn't, I don't think he's like sitting here trying to cry boo-hoo that the Dodgers are ruining baseball. I think he's like, that's a big conversation that we need to talk about. But as far as they're concerned, in terms of the competitive side of things, they're focused on how do they get the Cardinals to excellence, and it doesn't matter what the Dodgers are doing. And I think that's a really fun way to look at it, because you see other markets sometimes, and I mean, I've been pretty open. Like, I'm frustrated about what the Dodgers are doing. I don't know what the direct fix is, but I do feel like at the end of the day, there's a gap widening. I don't think that's good for baseball, because at the very least, there's a perception that people can't contend, and perception sometimes is everything. But at the end of the day too, like, I don't want Chaim crying poor. Like, I don't want the Cardinals front office saying, well, throwing up our hands, we're going to run a small payroll all the time because who cares? We're not going to win anyways. I think they're motivated to try and figure this out. And I'm very encouraged by what they talked about within that. And I think part of the reason you've heard so much excitement from Oli to work with Chaim and the players to work with Chaim is, I think Chaim is very clear and consistent in what he's asking for from this organization and for players. And so even the veterans on the way out were, I think, very complimentary of Chaim to know clarity of what their role is going to look like moving forward. And I think this young team is excited that Chaim's truly giving them an opportunity to contend sure, on the field, but also contend for their future as players, that they're not sitting behind Sonny Gray in the rotation or Nolan Arenado and Will Contreras in the lineup. Like, they're going to have every opportunity to win playing time and to establish themselves for the future here. And so anything else from Chaim that really stood out to you from our time with him?
I mean, I think you hit a lot of it. I think a lot of what the players had to say was very interesting. I think what Oli had to say, it was very interesting. they were a little bit cagey about extension for Oli. We did ask him that, but that wasn't really addressed throughout our time with either of them. And I think it was definitely something that should happen at some point. I'm a big believer in Oli, and I think he's probably the right manager to lead this young team to the next step, right? But his contract is coming up soon, and Chaim says he believes in Oli right now, but he also has to earn that spot for next year, right? He has to show that he can do it. And while that might be good to have some clarity on that, that's what they did before the 2023 season or 2024 season. They extended Oli. I don't remember which one it was, but
24
or before 24, I guess. Yeah. But then, I think definitely you do need to prove that at some point, right? Everyone on this team is fighting for a spot. Nothing is guaranteed. JJ Weatherholt is not guaranteed a spot on the opening day roster. I think he's going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, they also seem very confident in him. The way they talk about him, special, that he's not unlike anyone they've really had coming through the organization in a long time. I mean, Jordan Walker was raving about how level-headed he is, and he's like, man, whenever I hit with JJ, which they've been hitting together over the winter, it's like JJ is just so relaxed and confident in who he is. Because I asked Jordan, you are in a very similar situation as JJ coming up, where you were that top prospect in all of baseball that you kind of were you weren't guaranteed an opening day roster spot, but everyone kind of knew you were going to make the opening day roster. And he was like, yeah, I mean, JJ's going to figure it out. JJ would be fine. I think if I further asked Jordan, compared to you, I think Jordan would be like, yeah, I was way more in over my head, and JJ's not going to miss a beat with it. But to your point, they're not going to hand it to him. And I'm even talked about with Jordan. Someone asked him, is Jordan Walker going to be someone who gets 500 plus plate appearances? And he was like, I mean, that's my hope, but we're not going to hand it to him. Mm-hmm. He's got to prove it. And if he's not performing, then no, he's not going to get that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the mentality that heading into spring, right? There's going to be a lot of competition. No roster spot is guaranteed other than, I don't know, Mason Wynn, maybe Ivan Herrera. But Ivan Herrera, there's, questions, can he catch? That's something we can dive into further later on in this conversation. And just, I think there's a different vibe around this team. I feel like we can all kind of feel it based on the interviews, based on the fan excitement. I feel like this is a pretty intelligent fan base. There's going to be those people that, go up on stage and ask Chaim Bloom, why did you trade Nolan Arenado? He was my favorite player. To which I ask, have you seen him play over the last 3 years? But I still don't really get that. I think I saw a tweet the other day where it was my son was sad they traded Nolan Arenado, and I was like, your son's not old enough to have seen him be good. So I don't know why people are so upset, but stuff like that where there will be that disconnect between the fans and the front office at some points where I think there probably will be more uproar if and when they trade Brendan Donovan.
Yeah.
I feel like that's still very much on the table. With each passing day, I feel like it does become less likely, and we haven't really heard a lot of buzz soon. And I say that, and we're going to be on here at 10 o'clock talking about Brendan Donovan getting traded to the Red Sox or something. And great.
I would say Bloom was asked about that Donnie situation, and they said ideally all these things are handled before camp, but it's possible these things linger into camp. And he was given the opportunity to say, hey, he said at some point they'd like to give Donovan clarity if possible. And it's they won't say for sure there's no way, but they might tell him, hey, you're probably here to start 2026. And was given the opportunity, can you say that today? He said, no, I cannot say that today. So they're still exploring that market. But obviously I think there's a chance they go into the season with him. So one name that I feel like was brought up a ton by Oli, and I think Oli kept kind of reiterating and he actually then at one point after he kept saying his name over and over again, was like, hey, I really want to double down on Victor Scott. Victor Scott was a guy for him that he was very no one had to ask him about Victor Scott. He just kept bringing him up as a guy that he just feels like he's the guy who's going to take a step next year. Him and Mason are probably the two guys that he really hit on. But Victor specifically in terms of, hey, this guy has figured it out defensively. He's great on the base paths, but he needs to be on base more to execute that. But he truly does believe that there's more in the tank offensively. And the way he's dealt with failure, I think, is something that really impresses Oli, because it's given him the ability to have this trust in Victor Scott that he's not he doesn't succumb to the pressure, and he doesn't get too down on himself, that he's truly working every single day and being diligent with his ways of getting better. And I think he just believes that Vic is going to be that guy.
Yeah. No, I think that's good to hear, because I think Scott is one of the guys that I don't think we've necessarily had too much expectation on going into.
Yeah.
But like, it's clear that there also, to me, that there is more communication between the players and the front office and the coaching staff this offseason than there has been in the past. It definitely sounds like either they've gotten more personnel, the personnel is better, they care more, whatever. I don't mean to dog on Mo, because, that's what we do here. We carry Mo's water. But, I definitely think that it was too late to let Mo go. Like, they should have done that earlier. Like, he clearly needed this shift earlier, but I'm glad that they did it now. And it's clear to me that, like, they know a lot more about their young players. And to hear that about a guy that, wasn't necessarily on our radar, right? Like, most of what we were thinking about this offseason with young guys is, JJ Weatherholt and Jordan Walker and, Herrera. And these are the guys that we need to take steps forward this season. Like, Victor Scott is kind of an afterthought, but it's good to hear that, like, because we've talked about it before. Like, if Victor Scott can just be like 85 WRC plus guy, then he could be one of the most valuable players on the team, because he's really, really good defensively in center field. And if you walk him, he can end up on second base within a pitch or two, just because of how fast he is. And catchers don't really stand much of a chance of throwing him out. Like, he was just one of the best at stealing bases last year, and he just needs to get on base. Like, you can't steal first, but once you get on, like, you can cause some chaos on the base pass, and that's what he's capable of doing. Like, he has that speed tool that is really just elite. Like, that's probably one of the best tools in all of the Cardinals, like, system, pretty much full stop, right?
Yeah. A couple other just hitters. Joshua Baez was really impressive in our time with him this morning. And Bloom, I think, addressed this on the main stage, but I think he kind of philosophically values AAA a lot. And so I think we're going to see Joshua Baez. I don't know if he starts the year at Memphis or Springfield, but he's probably going to spend a significant amount of time at Memphis before he makes a major league debut. But I don't think he's ruling out if he has another season like he did this past year. You just kept saying over and over again, like, it was an excellent season that Baez had. And if he's able to replicate that kind of stuff, then, I mean, there's probably a chance you see him in St. Louis more toward the end of this coming season. Liam Doyle talked about how it's been communicated to him that he's a big part of their future. And so I think the Cardinals are putting a lot of eggs in that basket. Interesting note within Liam Doyle is that Chaim said that the plan is not to have Liam Doyle be a part of big league camp. I think they're mostly focused on him just ramping up and making sure he's healthy and building up, because 2026 really isn't his year. I mean, there's a chance he debuts later in the year, but I think it's probably looking at like a 2027 timeline for Doyle, or 2028. And so I don't think they're in a rush to get into big league camp and have him kind of assert himself too much or overexert himself too much to prove himself. I think they just want him to build up, and he talked about they haven't really done much with him yet in terms of making arsenal shifts or changes. For the most part, they're just having him get focused on being ready for this year, and the chips will fall where they may with that kind of stuff. Quinn Matthews addressed a lot of the adversity he went through this year. But I think probably the last big hitter, we kind of touched on him a little bit. We maybe touched more on some JJ Weatherholt too, which we'll have an interview with him tomorrow. Also, we do have a pack, and so or I've got packs now. So if we can get up to, I mean, it's a little bit of a lower turnout tonight. So if we get up to 20 likes before the end of the stream, which is not that long because we're not gonna go super long, I'll rip one on and see this opening day ticket giveaway. But one of the things, so we can talk a little bit more JJ if we want. But I think maybe the last thing is the Jordan Walker side of things. We talked about earlier, Jordan's gonna have to earn his opportunity. Chaim talked about how the communication he's heard internally from the front office and coach, and just from the voices, he didn't specify who, that this has been the best that Jordan has communicated with them in an off season and been kind of open to the changes and working alongside them to get better. So that's always very encouraging. Sounds like he was at Driveline earlier this year. He's been hitting with JJ. I think he spent some time with Mason. He's down in Florida. We'll be at the complex here soon. I don't know. I mean, I guess just as we listen to, actually real quick before we get into this, Andrew, I want to hear your thoughts on the Jordan side of things, but we do want to thank, as always, our presenting sponsor, the 314, the Deal in the Cards podcast, and that's 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They've just been an awesome partner with the podcast for a long time. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. So if you're around tomorrow in St. Louis, go check out 314. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards at the new selections of packs, boxes, and single cards local players to start around the league. Get 2025 Topps Chrome there. They have 2026 packs here soon. And then the Bowman packs are out now too. So make sure you go check out 314 for all of that. Appreciate their team. And again, if we can hit like just 20 likes for the stream, I'll rip this and see if we can give away some opening day tickets. But I guess just hearing people talk about Jordan and hearing Jordan himself talk, Andrew, kind of how'd you walk away from your confidence meter? Up, down, the same? Like, where you at with Jordan?
You know, I feel like since day one, we have seen and heard about how great of a speaker and how mature Jordan Walker is for his age. So I don't really care, honestly, that he, you know, spoke well today at winter warm-up, right? Like, I expect that from him at this point. You know, he's a mature guy, like, but can he hit the baseball? Like, I don't like. There's plenty of guys that are not that mature and can hit a baseball better than him, right? So, like, I don't think that's really, like, that's not his job is to be a speaker. Like, if he wanted to do that, he can start a podcast, I guess. But you know, like, that's not what we're looking for in Jordan Walker, and we kind of already know that. But it definitely does reassure me to see that Chaim also has faith in him, right? Like, that definitely helps with, you know, this is a new front office, right? And I think there's definitely certain things that you look at, and I don't know, right? Like, he's been to Driveline. The team is talking about his upside, but they've been doing this for like 3 years, and I'll believe it when I see it, right? Like, it's definitely reassuring. My confidence levels may be up from like 10% to like 12%, but like, that's not really meaningful enough for me to be like, yeah, Jordan Walker, write him in pen and right field every day. Honestly, I still want to see him start the year at AAA because he still has that one option year left. If you're going to use that next year or whatever, like, you're probably screwed anyway, right? Like, if you're optioning Jordan Walker in his 4th big league season or 5th big league season, then he's probably not. It's probably not going to work. But I would like to see him maybe start AAA, get some reps in, show that he can hit AAA pitching at an elite level before you call upon him to play in the big leagues again. Maybe work on that defense a little bit more. Like, yeah, he has significant upside, but we've also kind of seen that a lot of these guys are just not really, like, a lot of guys with his frame, like Aaron Judge didn't come up until he was like, what, 25, 26. That's when he really broke out. And Jordan Walker's 23. Guys with that frame tend to age into it a little bit later. So maybe we just need to wait on that. But I definitely think that, you know, there's a lot to like with Jordan Walker, as always. The frame is great. The bat speed is great, but he just hasn't put it together. And I'll believe it when I see it in real games, right? Like, he's done it in spring training, but you know, like, it's the same story over and over again. I feel like we were saying this last year at winter warm-up. I know it was Mo and not Chaim's doing it. I feel like we were saying it 2 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll wrap up here soon, but if we can get 7 more likes, get up to 20, I'll rip this pack and potentially give away opening day tickets.
You owe us a pack from last episode, no?
Oh, I do. Okay. That's true. I'll at least do that one. So before I'm getting ready to answer here, because I have similar, but I have a little more. There's some stuff that was said about him that I think is interesting. So if you haven't done this before or haven't been with us before, I'm going to rip this pack. And if you can guess one of the players in the pack, we'll give away opening day tickets. And so I'm going to start a timer now. You can put one name in the chat of someone you think is in this pack. If you get it correct, then we're gifting you some opening day tickets. You got 30 seconds to do that. Again, one guess, pick a person in this pack. If you're correct, opening day tickets. Or if you can't make opening day, I'll get you the equivalent of that. But I think it's important what was said about him by other people. Like you said, Jordan's always been really like someone that I've loved listening to. I don't think he's ever been a guy who's like poor, poor communicator. He's always seemed wise beyond his years, so that's not a problem to me at all. And I mean, I enjoyed his optimism, and he seemed to be a little more in tune with what was going on. And so I think what was encouraging to me, though, was what Chaim was very direct in saying about Jordan is that, like, this is the most communicative he's been in an offseason. He truly seems to be open to change. And he addressed himself like, hey, there were some changes they offered to me earlier in this year, but it's just harder to make those adjustments in season and out of an off season to do that. And so I was encouraged by that. But like you said, at the end of the day, we'll have to see it, right? But I think that's what Chaim said too. He's like, Chaim said there's a lane for Jordan to have 500 plus plate appearances. He's got to earn it. And they're not going to hand it to him. They're not going to give it to him. Yes, he's the favorite. He is the like incumbent right now, but they're not going to just gift it to him if he's not playing to that capability. And so I do think there is truly a competition in the camp where I expect him to be opening day roster, and I think that's probably the best route to go. But if he looks terrible in camp, I think he starts in Memphis, and I think someone else does play right field. They'll figure that part out. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, a couple more guesses. I'm going through. This is not a special pack, so like there's regular players in here from the year. It's not the Allen and Ginter or it's some randoms, but give you another 30 seconds. You get one guess. Put a player in here. Mason Windu, if you want to change your Ryan Sandberg, you can. One guess, player, rip it, potentially give away. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Walker. Yeah, any other takeaways from the day, or we kind of want to wrap up with the pack opening here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot to take in from the new front office. Like a lot of those guys have been in the same room as Chaim before, but it was definitely cool to get to meet him and get to talk with him during this event. I hope they can put a good product on the field. I hope Chaim lives up to it. I'll give him the runway that he needs. Like he's earned that. I believe that he'll be able to turn this organization around. I hope it's sooner rather than later. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they've got tomorrow. You got the DeWitts,
Mason Wynn, Victor Scott, JJ Weatherhold.
Yeah, JJ I feel like is the big one tomorrow. So yeah, it's exciting.
Couple other address these chats real quick. Now rip the pack. Vibe in person. I mean, people felt very positive. There wasn't really a lot of Brendan Donovan talk. There was a question from Benjamin Hockman at one point about like theoretically, if you were to trade the long hair guy, what would happen? It's kind of like a laugh about it for a few minutes to Oli, but like,
theoretically, he could also just. Sorry, I'm not gonna.
Oh my gosh. I think the vibe right now is it's more likely than it was before that he's on the opening day roster, but he's still clearly potentially available. Sam Elias, we did hear from Nathan Church today. He talked with Josh Baez, talked about, again, that it's cool to get his feet wet in the major league level this year, but he's kind of working on, especially the upstairs fastball, especially with movement. That's something he really feels like he needs to work on as we go through. So we're going to rip this pack. If you guess a player who is in here, give away opening day tickets. Let's see. Maybe I get that Roki Sasaki debut patch. I don't know.
That would be crazy.
I can't believe it's still out there. What if people are probably gonna find it like years later? So,
I thought I won.
This is Spencer Schwallenbach.
No.
Ramon Laureano. Oh, it looks like there's a special card in here, which is the next one. This is Braxton Fullard. Is this Pete Alonso? That's cool. It's like a Fortune 15. Who is this? Robert Hassel. And then Drake Baldwin. That's
I saw Braves on the first one. I thought I won. It was a pitcher too.
So I don't think we got any guesses from this one, but I've got more packs that we'll rip in future episodes, and it'll be fun. So appreciate the turnout tonight. Again, we just want to do a quick recap. We might do one for day 2 or something. If not, we'll just do a regular episode at some point, obviously, because it's the weekend and everything. But appreciate the support as always. Like and subscribe, helps channel a ton. Again, go check out all the player interviews and Chaim's interview and all that, Oli's interview. There's a lot of good stuff with that. Appreciate Andrew's hard work and making sure we get all that content up. And yeah, we'll see you guys for our next episode. Go Bears, bear down. Sorry, Kareem, bear down. Anyways, fun day, first day of winter warm up. We'll go recap day 2 tomorrow. See you guys.
Thanks, Chaim.
Thanks, Chaim.